Welcome back to the Snowpoint Cast. Today we're going to be taking a look at a deck from the 2019 World Championships, actually the winning list from the 2019 World Championships, Henry Brand's Mewtwo Tag Team list. So let's get into it. Starting off with 4 Mewtwo Mew-GX. This card is just so good. 270 HP. It's got an ability, Perfection, Mewtwo GX. Mewtwo Mew-GX can use the attacks of any Pokemon GX or EX on your bench or in the discard pile. So that's like broken. That's a very strong ability, especially because of the HP on this card. You just get to utilize lots of attacks. And then there's also a lot of really good support Pokemon that let you attack for lots of really great attacks in this format. That some of them just win you matchups, which we'll get into when we start talking about the Pokemon. But yeah, great Pokemon. You can use Miraculous Duo GX. I think you play 2 Psychic. Yeah, you do play at least 2 Psychic. So you can use this GX attack. You most of the time won't be, because you have access to every GX attack in the deck with Mewtwo, either in the discard or on the bench. This is not one of the best GX attacks in the deck, but you can use it. So Psychic Colorless Miraculous Duo GX 200. If this Pokemon has 1 extra energy, heal all damage from all of your Pokemon. So situationally, it is good, but not one that you're going to frequently be using. Let's see if I can just fix my camera here. Nope, that's okay. So you're also playing 3 Dedenne-GX. So Dedenne, 160 HP. It's a support Pokemon. It's a great support Pokemon in this deck because you want those Pokemon in your discard pile, right? So Dedenne change. When you bench Dedenne, you can discard your hand and draw a fresh 6. You only get to use it once per turn, but you're setting up your some of your GX Pokemon are like evolutions. You play weird evolution lines that like seem to not make sense, like an 01 Magcargo line and some other stuff. But because Mewtwo can utilize those attacks, you just want to get them into the discard right away. So Dedenne does a great job at discarding your GX Pokemon so that Mewtwo can utilize it. Okay, so this is all the attackers that Mewtwo can use. Some of these attackers you can use on their own, but most of them you're going to want to be copying with Mewtwo, just because the energy cost of them is a little higher. So you're going to want to be weldering to Mewtwo Mew-GX. So the first one is Espeon Deoxys-GX. This is a really cool card. One of the GX attacks that's really good in some matchups. So 260 HP, a little bit lower than regular, but that's okay. Psychic Club for Psychic, 2 colorless, does 10 plus 30 damage for each of your Psychic Pokemon. Each of your benched Psychic Pokemon. So a decent attack. I mean, not awful if you have a couple Mewtwo tag teams and maybe an Espeoxys or maybe a Latios. You do play a decent amount of Psychic Pokemon, so this is an attack you can use, and it doesn't discard energy. Some of your attacks cost energy, so just a nice, decent slap attack. But Cross Division GX is the main reason you're playing this guy. So Cross Division GX, Psychic Double Colorless, put 10 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. If this Pokemon has at least 3 extra energy attached to it, put 20 damage counters on them instead. So that just destroys a lot of boards. Kill double Poipole, kill like most setup Pokemon in the game. Like if you want to, like you can just kill a Dedenne and then set something else up for a knockout. It's just like great snipe damage that can also set up something else, or take out 2 like support, like let's say 2 Poipole, or if your opponent has like Ninetales that you really don't want to deal with, that might be a win condition for them or something. If they're playing Reshiram, you can just take it out and then it's not a concern. So it's really great for board control. Cross Division GX, really strong attack in the deck. I was playing 1 Reshiram-GX, so 270 HP. This is another one of the attackers that you're usually going to find yourself benching. Not always, but like it's fine to bench because you usually have a Mewtwo in play anyway. And then if they target that, they're not targeting your energy, which is usually fine. And then since Mewtwo can use the attacks of GX Pokemon on your bench, you can just bench it and then utilize the attacks as well. So Outrage Fire Colorless does 30 plus 10 damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. Pretty good, but not amazing. Not an attack you're going to be frequently using. Flare Strike is the more common attack you'll be using. So Fire Colorless, 230. This Pokemon can't use Flare Strike during your next turn. So just a really strong, powerful attack. 230 for 4 is really decent. And then if you have Welder, accelerating that isn't that bad. Double Blaze GX is another GX attack that you can very possibly use in this deck. So Fire does 200. If this Pokemon has 3 additional fire energy in addition to this attack's cost, it does 100 more damage. So it does 300, which tank busts. It kills every tag team in the format. So just a really great high damage attack there. And speaking of high damage, you're also playing a Magcargo-GX. This is one of your really strong attacks. So we're not going to talk about the HP. You don't play a Slugma, so you're not going to be getting this out onto the bench, but this is one of those cards that I was talking about earlier, where you just want to discard it with a Dedenne or another card that discards cards in your hand. So Magcargo, Fire Colorless, Lava Flow, 50. Discard any amount of basic energy from this Pokemon. This attack does 50 more damage for each card discarded this way. So this is another way to one-shot a tag team. If you have 6 energy on your Mewtwo, which takes a little bit. I mean, you have to get Welder attached, but it can happen over 2 turns. You can just one-shot another tag team. Which is really good. Your kind of strategy against other tag team decks, because you have that tank bust ability that not a lot of other tag team decks have. You just want to go through 2 tag teams because that's your route. Just easy 6 prizes. And Magcargo is one of those attackers that really helps you get there easily. You can use Burning Magma GX as well. It's pretty bad, I think, but discard your top 5 cards of your opponent's deck. Situationally, I guess it could win you the game. So good to keep that in mind. Burning Magma could mill your opponent. You're playing one Solgaleo-GX. This is another evolution that you're not playing the basic of. So 2 attacks. The main one is Turbo Strike. Turbo Strike is an amazing attack in this deck. It's very, very strong. So Turbo Strike for 2 colorless, 120, attach 2 basic energy cards from your discard to one of your bench Pokemon. So that just keeps your Mewtwo's flowing. It makes it so you don't have to have a Welder if you have 2 fire in your discard. You can just put it onto another Mewtwo and then attack the next turn with that Mewtwo. So that's great acceleration. And then Prominence GX for 2 colorless. Heal all damage from all of your Pokemon. Not as good as the Mewtwo GX attack, unfortunately. You just for 2 extra energy, it also does damage as well. But in a pinch, I guess it is situationally good. Naganadel, another one of those evolutions that you're not playing a basic of. So Naganadel-GX, Venom Shot for Psychic, 3 colorless. Discard 2 energy from this Pokemon. This attack does 170 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. So mostly for killing Dedennes. This is a great Dedenne snipe option. Venom Shot just kills the Dedenne. So if your opponent doesn't have a Mew, which not a ton of decks play, some definitely do, but some don't have the bench room for it, you can just kill a Dedenne. So that's just an easy 2 prizes there. And then Injection GX, add a card from your... you can't use that because you don't play Lightning, so don't worry about it. Venom Shot really strong, though. And then these are basics, so you can just bench these guys and use them on the bench. Latios is one of those cards that you don't mind benching and putting on the bench because you can just attack with it. And then if your opponent targets it, like, it just goes to the discard, and then Mewtwo can still use it in the discard, and they're not targeting your energy. So you really don't mind if they're going to be bringing that up with some custom catchers and killing it or something. So 170 HP, Power Bind. If you have 4 or fewer Pokemon in play, this Pokemon can't attack. Tag Purge for Psychic Double Colorless does 120, and then during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks of tag team Pokemon. So broken card against a couple decks. Pikarom, it's really good against. They only pretty much play a Zapdos in terms of like Pokemon that can hit into you. I guess with Tapu Koko they can hit into you as well. But most of the time that's just going to be straight winning in the matchup. This is one of those cards that just wins a bunch of matchups depending on how they're teched. Reshiram isn't really one of those because they do have some basic attackers in Victini Prism Star as well as Turtonator. However, Tag Purge is really good, and in some spots you just need to chip them. You're like, I'm not going to take a knockout here, but I can prevent you from doing damage while also setting up a 2-shot. So great attack. And then Clear Vision GX, because you play Psychic Energy, you can use this GX attack. For the rest of the game, your opponent can't use any GX attacks. So probably not good, but there are probably situations where it's good. I can't think of any right now. Moving on, we're playing a Cobalion-GX as well. So this is a really interesting card. I like this card a lot in the list. So you only play it for Iron Rule. You only play it for the GX attack. But one of the reasons that the GX attack is so good is because of Magcargo. So the GX attacks Iron Rule GX during your opponent's next turn. During your opponent's next turn, their Pokemon can't attack. So essentially it stalls you a turn, right? It buys you a turn. Let's say you're playing a mirror match or something and your opponent is in the lead and they're going to win next turn. You can just use Iron Rule. If you haven't used your GX attack, you go Iron Rule, I'll Welder to my active, draw 3. You know, let's say you have a Mewtwo with like 4 on it or something. Your Pokemon are safe for a turn, essentially, is what it does. And that's really nice because with Magcargo's high energy cost, it does 50 times the amount of fire in play. So you sometimes buying that turn to Welder 2 energy cards on and maybe attach a 3rd lets you just go for an attach KO next turn, and then all of a sudden you win the game from a game that your opponent might have been leading. So really cool card. I remember watching one of Henry Brand's games and he utilized Iron Rule GX in a really neat way. Super cool card, and I think it's really warranted in the deck because you're so highly aggressive. But if your opponent, even if your opponent starts aggressing you and gets a prize lead on you, as long as you're holding onto your Iron Rule GX, you have a route to win the game, even if they're just straight beating you on the prize trade, which is a really neat part about the card. I was playing one Marshadow, so 80 HP. Resetting Hole is the reason you play this guy. So once during a turn, before you attack, if this Pokemon is on your bench, you may discard any Stadium card. If you do, discard this Pokemon and all cards attached. Really cool card. Just lets you The big thing I think is Power Plant is the name of the card. It just like turns off your GX Pokemon's ability, which kills your entire deck. So you really can't afford to not be using Mewtwo in a Mewtwo deck. And then Red Knuckles is situationally actually good. So Red Knuckles, if your opponent's active Pokemon is an Ultra Beast attack, does 60 more damage. You do 70 for 1, which is not awful in some situations. It's not an attack you're going to frequently be using, but in certain situations, it's not bad to keep in mind. It kills a Poipole, so that's kind of cool. And then you're playing one Jirachi-GX as well. So Jirachi-GX is a very, very good card. Super important to the deck because Mewtwo is weak to Psychic, so it's weak to itself, which means in Mewtwo Mirror, this is a massive card. There's also a couple other decks in the format that can attack you for Psychic. So Psychic Zone on Jirachi, 160 HP, Psychic Zone. Don't apply Psychic Weakness when Pokemon, both yours and your opponents, take damage from attacks. So it protects your opponent as well, but you know, you're in control of benching it. So if you're up against a Mewtwo and you're going to kill them, probably don't bench the Jirachi just because you'll take the weakness knockout. And then you do play Psychic, so you can use the attack Star Search. Search your deck for an energy card and attach to one of your Psychic Pokemon, then shuffle your deck. Not awful, honestly. If you have nothing else to do, could be a better attack, but I mean, it's playable at least. And then 3 Psychic does 100, prevent all effects of attack, including damage, done to this Pokemon during your opponent's next turn. Pretty bad, but remember, you can copy it with Mewtwo, so in some situations it might be good to chip and then also prevent damage on the Mewtwo next turn if that's a good route for you. Okay, so moving into, I'm just going to make sure, yeah, we got all the cards right here. Moving into trainer cards, we're starting off with 4 Pokégear. Because Welder is the backbone of the deck, you're a Welder deck. You just need Welder so bad. So Pokégear, look at the top 7 cards of your deck. You reveal a supporter card you find there, and then put it in your hand, shuffle your deck afterwards. So finding Welder, really important. You don't play a lot of supporters, so 4 Pokégear kind of just makes sense. Let's play 4 Acro Bike. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one of them in your hand, and then discard the other card. So that's actually kind of good because of all these guys that you really don't mind in the discard. Like most of your GX Pokemon that are attackers need to be discarded somehow. So Acro Bike gets you there. And then also Acro Bike just sees you more cards, which is nice. Also discarding Fire with the Turbo Strike for Solgaleo is really not bad. So having Fire in the discard there can be really good for you as well. Playing 4 Cherish Ball as well. Cherish Ball, search your deck for a Pokemon GX, reveal it, put it in your hand. So great. One of the ways you can set up is just finding Dedenne, but then also if you have multiple Cherish Ball in your hand, you can get a Dedenne and then something you want to discard with a Dedenne. If you already have, like you say, you start a Mewtwo, you can get Dedenne and then get a Magcargo-GX or something and then discard it so that you can have that attack as an option later. So Cherish Ball, great card in the deck. Mysterious Treasure, another card that discards cards and then also finds Pokemon. So discard a card from your hand. If you do, search your deck for a Psychic or Dragon Pokemon, reveal it, put it in your hand. Really strong card. I mean, finds all of your Mewtwo's, finds your Jirachi, finds your Marshadow, finds your Espeon Deoxys, finds your Latios. You don't play Dragon, or you find your Naganadel as well. And then also the ability to discard cards. Just like I said, obviously you need to find ways to get those Pokemon in the discard so that you can attack with them. I actually should have done this one first, but that's okay. Playing 4 Custom Catcher. So if you can play 2 cards at once, if you played 1, draw until you have 3. Not often you're going to be doing that unless you're in a pinch. But if you play 2 at a time, it's essentially a gust effect. So you get to boss your opponent, which is really strong. You obviously care about taking double prize knockouts as often as you can, or triple prize knockouts if that's an option to you. And Custom Catcher kind of just lets you do that. You're also playing 2 Switch. Some of your boys have pretty fat retreat. Reshiram is like 3, Mewtwo is like 2, and sometimes you want to be switching into different attackers as well, kind of depending on what your board state looks like. So just keeping that mobility is good. Let's play 1 Fire Crystal. Put 3 Fire Energy cards from your discard pile into your hand. So just great for getting those energy back. You have a lot of discard cards, and you don't mind discarding Fire Energy a lot of the time, but because of Welder, sometimes you need to find those cards back, and Fire Crystal just lets you get off a Welder and then also an attached return if you have the Welder in your hand. Let's bring 1 Electromagnetic Radar. So this is mostly for finding Dedenne because Dedenne is like such a important card in the deck. But you can only just play this card if you discard 2 other cards from your hand. Like I said, there's a lot of cards you want to discard, so it's not that bad most of the time. And then search your deck for up to 2 in any combination of Pokemon GX or Pokemon GX, reveal them, and put them in your hand. So most times you're just going to find you 1 Dedenne. But it's just another card in addition to 4 Cherish Ball that finds you Dedenne because Dedenne is a play the game card. Okay, so also playing 3 Giant Hearth. This stadium's so good in the deck. Once during each player's turn, that player may discard a card from their hand. If they do, that player searches their deck for up to 2 Fire Energy cards, reveals them, and puts them into their hand. Then that player shuffles their deck. So, I mean, obviously finding 2 Fire Energy cards is really good with Welder. because you just get to put 2 on immediately. And then also you get to discard cards. So just so much synergy. It really makes sense that this deck won Worlds because the list just clicks, right? Like all of the pieces kind of work together and they all make sense. And Giant Hearth is just another one of those pieces that works really well with the deck. And Viridian City is another discard card stadium. So once during turn, then my player may discard a card from hand. If they do, that player searches the deck for a basic energy card, reveals it, and put it in their hand. The most use for this is for the psychic energy, because you only play 3, so you don't really have an option to find those other than Viridian City and raw drawing into psychic energy. Okay, moving on to the supporters. Obviously playing 4 Welder. Welder's insane. Attach up to 2 fire energy cards from your hand to one of your Pokemon. If you do, draw 3 cards. Broken card, and in combination with Mewtwo, it just lets you utilize all these attacks, and it's just a really insane combo, and it makes sense that Henry won Worlds. You also play 2 Bill's Analysis. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck. You're going to reveal up to 2 trainer cards you find there and put them in your hand. Shuffle the other cards back into your deck. So you play a lot of trainer cards that are really good for you, like Cherish Ball, Custom Catcher, Treasure, Switch. All these item cards are really good. Actually, trainer cards. So it also finds you Welder. So if you have a miss Welder turn, Bill's Analysis can also find you a Welder, which is also great. Or you can find a Stadium as well. So just a great dig card. You're playing so many trainers that finding a lot of them is usually really good for you. And it just kind of lets you dig a little bit there. Okay, so going into energy, we're going to be playing a bunch of energy. We're going to be playing 8 fire and then 3 psychic. Mostly because you don't need a ton of energy. Like this is only a 11 energy, but with the Solgaleo-GX and Welder just being able to ramp them back, as well as Fire Crystal, you have a decent amount of recovery on your energy. So, you know, ditching 1 to 2 fire energy seems kind of bad because then you only have 6 in deck for Welder, but you get to use the Solgaleo if that's the case, or Fire Crystal them back as well. And then the Psychics, obviously, just for the Psychic cost attacks, Venom Shot, Espeoxys, stuff like that. Okay, well, this has been Henry Brand's Mewtwo Mew-GX list that he won Worlds with in 2019. If you have any questions about the deck, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to get to them. And as always, thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next time.